You know what's great? How people tend to call me crazy. Yeah, for some reason, people get on their high horse about me saying things like, Alex, why do you care so much about ownership or where your money goes in the video game space? All you're doing is acting like a broke boy, because these multi-billion and trillion-dollar corporations are not charities. They are companies. They should be earning my dollar just like I have to earn mine. Yeah, I still have a regular good old-fashioned J-O-B. Oh, you hear that? Yeah, the McDonald's fries aren't going to cook themselves. The thing is, though, the more that we spend in this gaming industry, the worse things apparently tend to be, with game companies having obsessively obscene budgets that mass into the hundreds of millions of dollars to now the ever-increasing cost consistently. And now we're moving into the service war and platform war, no longer having the console war. Yeah. That's going to be a whole new ball game, where now the companies are trying to create service platforms like Xbox Game Pass and PlayStation Plus and even Nintendo Online to siphon money out of your pocket every single month while literally giving you zero ownership over everything. You know what the crazier thing about all of this, though, is? When those same companies now start to remove their own IPs and their own products from that service directly and call it a good thing. I wish I was kidding. You see, it turns out PlayStation has this really weird obsession with you spending more money and getting nothing. Back in May of this year, PlayStation removed over 20 games out of their PS Plus program. Everything from Grand Theft Auto 5, MotoGP, The Sims 4, Walkabout Mini Golf, Synth Riders, Resistance Fall of Man, Resistance 2, Ghostbusters, Before Your Eyes, The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners, Chapter 2, Lego Marvel Superheroes, Stranded: Alien Dawn, the Lego Movie 2 video game, Ghost Runner, Payday 2, Bloodstained, Portal Knights, Enter the Gungeon, Batman Arkham Knight, and Infamous Second Son. Truthfully, I can kind of see a lot of these games having a reason why they would be leaving the PS Plus program this past May. Some of them are not owned by PlayStation. The problem that I do have, however, is the fact that games literally owned by PlayStation, who have their IPs owned by Sony, who have the same development studios owned by the PlayStation brand and Sony directly, are games also being removed. Infamous Second Son, why would you remove that from your own direct service? The same thing with Resistance and Resistance Fall of Man. There is no reason IPs that are owned directly by that company, like Sony and PlayStation, should have their games removed from the service that you're paying for. I could get things like Grand Theft Auto and others, but the fact is PlayStation owns those IPs. PlayStation owns those games. Why they're removing them from you, the consumer, who's giving them money for that service to play those games in the first place that they own the IP for, really makes no sense whatsoever. There's really no defending this at all. It would be as if Xbox all of a sudden randomly started removing their own first-party titles from Game Pass, as if they wouldn't be either day and date or just removing them from the service altogether. Imagine having things like Doom being removed, or even The Elder Scrolls, or even any major Xbox first-party game like Halo just being ripped out of the actual Game Pass service. Oh, you wanted to play Master Chief Collection, even though barely anybody's playing it right now, but sure, we'll just remove it out of the service even though we own the name, we own the IP, we own the game, and it costs us almost nothing to keep it up on their service anyway, so why the hell not? Just rip it out of your hands. That's what we're moving into, I guess, the era where you're going to pay for everything and own nothing. But of course, as my channel tends to point out, it always seems to get worse, because according to IGN yesterday, Sony said this: Sony removes games from PS Plus, even its own games, to keep the proposition interesting and help people find new games, says PlayStation exec. Ah yes, the good old-fashioned, we're gonna keep things interesting, keep you on your toes while you give us a bunch of money every single month. That's what we're gonna do. By the way, are you enjoying that old video game that nobody buys anymore, that you can only find used off of eBay, and the fact you have to have an old console to play it because our new consoles don't have backwards compatibility? We're going to go ahead and keep things interesting. Go ahead and rip that out of your actual library, not be able to use it anymore or play it, and you're going to go ahead and have all these other new games instead. Boy, isn't that interesting? It's so bass-ackwards to me that every single time we see game companies do things like this, it it's always in the worst possible case. Using the words keeping things interesting and or fresh has to be combined with being anti-consumer as possible. It's like these companies don't want money. Just put the games up for sale. Just have backwards compatibility. The amount of money it costs you to develop an actual emulator to run these games is negligible in the amount of money you'll make from a customer like myself who will go out and buy those titles and buy those consoles in the first place because there's more reason for me to get them. I've talked about this before. I wish the PS5 Pro had pure backwards compatibility with PS1 and PS2 discs. That way I could have my entire old collection be playable on a console instead of having my PS2 on its final death legs just barely walking itself by to the finish line because I know that one day those capacitors are going to pop. And yeah, I love emulating those games on my Steam Deck and my PC, but sometimes I want to hear that good old disc tray crunch and I want to hear the happen on my PS2 on my big screen TV, even though I'm not even using an upscaler. That's right, I'm an absolute savage. But the thing is, this kind of behavior continues to happen all the time, and we're seeing it happen with more companies over and over again. In fact, Nick McGuire, the vice president of global services at PlayStation, said this. In a Gamefly interview with Nick McGuire, the VP of Global Services at PlayStation, he was asked about the fact that PlayStation regularly deletes games from the service. Just this past May, it took down over 20 games. Some of these removals make sense, such as GTA 5. It's likely Sony's deals with third parties have expiration dates, but it's a little more surprising to see older Sony first-party games removed, such as Infamous Second Son, Resistance Fall of Man, and Resistance 2. Nick McGuire states this directly, quote, "We've got 80 collections of games across the catalog, so we want to keep it fresh and bring new games. Sometimes that means taking a few games out at the same time to keep the proposition interesting and help people find new games as well." This has to be the most absolute I've truly ever heard any corpo say whatsoever. There is no limited space on the amount of games you can provide on a platform or even a service like this. It's simply just ones and zeros on a server dedicated to that directly. Now, he could have said things like, well, these are older games, we're emulating them, we want to make sure that we have the right bandwidth for it. Any other reason whatsoever that you could have possibly done in some technical sense to go ahead and provide a better example of what's going on. But even then, he chose the worst possible option to say. Keep a proposition interesting? What does that even mean? Oh, you just want to keep me on my toes, I guess, from games that I'm looking forward to playing or haven't gotten to from this service that I can't find physically anymore, or my console doesn't work anymore, to go through and say, oh, well, now you can't buy it, but still give us your money every month because you got to pay for online as well. Having around 80 collections of games across a back catalog is fantastic, sure, but you could always give the customer more. And the fact that they continually take things away is the crazier part about all of this. There's no reason to remove these titles from your service when you own the IP, when it's literally yours. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I can understand having a third-party game being removed because, hey, that contract does expire. At least that is somewhat measurable in that stance. But the thing is, everything else that you guys own directly shouldn't be taken off the service at all. But the thing is, the interview continues and things get even weirder from there. In the same interview, McGuire discussed PlayStation Plus' ongoing success, saying that engagement has never been higher. McGuire declined to speak explicitly about how pricing impacted that since subservice prices went up in 2023, and he did not offer subscriber numbers, but he did explain some of the logic behind which games Sony chooses to add. For instance, the company tries to find a moment to grow a franchise, such as by releasing a game on the service just before the sequel launches. He also says that Sony tries to add roughly one new quote-unquote classic game per month, though they may not always meet that goal due to emulation taking time. That is literally exactly the Nintendo plan. We're going to go ahead and drip feed you some of these games every now and then. Games that we think might work, but also games that you really don't want. But every now and then it'll be a good one, and you'll go ahead and keep giving us more money every month rather than just us selling us those games to you piecemeal on that device. The Wii Shop was fantastic for that. You got to go ahead and pick all those games out every single week and say, whoa, look at all these great new games I can buy from. Couple bucks here, couple bucks there, no big deal. deal. Now it's the opposite. Now you have to give them a service for online pay every single month, and you got to hope and pray that the game you want on the classic console that you want comes out on that service, because that's the only way you're going to be allowed to play it on your Nintendo Switch. And we're seeing it happen now with PlayStation as well. One new classic game a month because of emulation? Are you kidding me? When 5 guys in a broken back shed could figure out DuckStation in 6 months, and PCSX2 blows the fuck out of the water of anything right now in terms of PlayStation emulation? This is the most ridiculous thing, how a multi-billion-dollar company consistently gets bent over by a bunch of guys in their garage just going ahead and coding back old PS1 and PS2 emulators. And you guys can't do it yourselves? How easy would it have been when you guys had the source code for those consoles, had the actual programmers in your disposal, have all these billions of dollars, and you can't do more than one classic game a month? This is absolutely ridiculous. You're doing nothing more than drip feeding content to people and trying to go ahead and push them into a higher tier of service, even though you're giving them less product and less goods overall. This is again PlayStation following in Nintendo's footsteps, doing everything they do but objectively worse, even though Nintendo is also been incredibly worse about it as well. We've got one following another. They're just 2 idiots in the back end following each other blindfolded down the street, trying to figure out where the hell they're going, and at the same time they got a crowd of other morons behind them just blindly sucking off whatever they step on in the exact same way that we see every single week on this channel. It's truly absurd to me that we have to go through this and see these VPs literally tell you to your faces that you're not enough, that you're not even close to what they need in terms of getting their bonuses every single quarter or even every single year. And now with the rumors of Xbox having massive layoffs, we're even seeing companies do that exact same thing. And I can guarantee you Satya Nadella's bald head ass is not going to be taking a pay cut. In fact, I'm guaranteeing he's going to be firing everybody to increase the bonus he's going to get on the back end. And that's what I'm talking about with all of this. Everybody who goes around and defends these companies and corporations is nothing more than an absolute bootlicker, which is why I was so angry yesterday about Pirate Software's stance about stop killing games. We're moving down to this path where we're going to be going ahead and no longer owning the products that we're actually buying. We're going to be moving into a service-based platform where every game, even if it's a single-player offline game, has to be part of a service to be played. And we're going to get monetized and nickel and dimed even more than we are right now. Now, the article from IGN ends by saying this: what it won't be doing anytime soon is what Xbox is doing, which is adding its own first-party games to the service the day they come out. Quote, we've sort of stayed true to our strategy across the board, where we're not looking to put games in day and date, McGuire said. Now here's the thing though, when you look at the premium version of PS Plus, it's $18 a month. And yeah, compared to Game Pass, it is $2 cheaper. The difference is though, for Game Pass, you're getting everything for Game Pass Ultimate day and date on that service from every single game. So at least you're getting a better deal there. It's far better than having a 2-hour demo of games that are going to be launching on that service directly. If PlayStation really wants to go ahead and have true value for that service for customers to bump up to that premium tier, they have to make it enticing. And removing products and games from that tier or that service isn't a way of doing that at all. Sure, I can bet that they don't want to do the exact same thing Xbox does, even though PlayStation hasn't been creative or even ideal in their own sense for a very long time since the PS2. Remember those days? I do, when PlayStation used to be actually weird and cool. Instead, they become incredibly corporatized. The thing is, though, if they're going to be charging $18 a month, being just $2 shy of Game Pass Ultimate, they have to do something better than just putting in the older game into the service before the sequel comes out. They have to offer more to the customer and consumer, or do the opposite and cut the price by at least $5 or $8, so that way people have a real reason to say, oh, it may not be what Game Pass is, but there's still more value here because I'm paying less and still getting more things overall. But we know that's not the case at all right now, because we've seen so many corporate bootlickers go around and just explain to these companies that, hey, we're willing to give you guys more money every single time. Hell, there are even fanboys who are angry at people like myself telling you to get the Bing app and not pay Game Pass any money at all and just use the reward points. That way, you don't spend a dime month over month and you've got everything there. Sure, guaranteed, they're making way more money off of your data than you are spending that actual money. But if you're looking at it from the perspective of my wallet matters most, that's a good option for you directly. Why spend the money when you don't have to? And I swear to God, people got actually mad at me for providing that concept, saying that, oh, giving them the money instead will give you more legs in the long run of that company, which is mind-numbing to me, because the fact that the company made that process of reward points in the first place for you to use it. And sadly, it's creeping into other things as well. We've been seeing Nintendo consistently go through and start breaking Nintendo Switches over and over again for the most innocuous things together. So now we're definitely not safe of anything at all. It used to be, well, your account would get blocked and you can't use it anymore, so your digital games are no longer available to be accessed. Make a new account. Okay, sure, that sucks, but whatever. Now it's to the point of where, oh, you're giving us a monthly service. We're going to take away the games that we put on there that entice you to sign up for the service in the first place. And we're hoping you're going to be too stupid to not cancel that service, because we're going to try and make it enticing for you to stay. Meaning we're going to go ahead and just keep you on your toes about the entire thing. Where are we heading into this horrible dystopian future of a nightmare that we call video games? This is the true canary in the coal mines moment. We're seeing it happen over and over again, and I've been calling it happening for the longest time. And yesterday's video of seeing Pirate Software completely just debase himself in front of everybody by spreading true misinformation of stop killing games and stopping the movement entirely goes to show that people are literally gullible by any corporate entity, and it's a shame to see. It's really sad when right now the only people you can actually trust is literally no one in this space to give you a true pro-consumer perspective. Instead, we're seeing people who we lauded up and brought up and said, hey, you're a good beacon of actual ideals for the actual consumer, turn right around and be nothing but a corporate bootlicker altogether. And it's compounded even worse when fanboys do the exact same behavior as well, giving the green light to these companies to consistently bend you over a barrel and just rip out every dollar from your wallet. These companies will do everything to take every advantage of you they possibly can. And the only way they'll know to stop is when you finally push back against them. Having PlayStation remove games from their actual online service basically means you shouldn't be giving them money for that online service. If Xbox did this, it would be being run from the rooftops about how horrible they are as a company. I guess that Xbox tax thing really is real then. But it's wild for me to see people defend these kinds of practices, bootleg companies and corporations, and act like everything is okay when their favorite company does it. It's not okay. And it shouldn't be an accepted practice, especially when we're being asked for more money on a consistent basis from every product and or service and or game being sold to us. And that's the part that really disheartens me the most. This hobby has pulled me out of so many horrible parts in my life that it's really astounding to me how great the medium of video games in fact actually are. There have been games that have emotionally impacted me more than any movie, film, or book ever could. Yet for some reason, people are treating this medium as if it's just some sort of throwaway thing simply because it has a stigma of being a video game from the 80s and 90s. It's incredibly disheartening seeing an industry that used to be some of the best reasons to go ahead and play video games in the first place become nothing more than an overbloated, fat, greasy, money-hungry just machine that consumes everything in its wake, and if you don't give it enough money, it'll toss you to the side, and it really is incredibly sad to see. But you know what? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section about this down below. Are you sticking with your PS Plus membership? Are you now going ahead and cancel that? Are you sad to see those games leave and even Sony not properly treat its IP correctly like it should be doing in the first place? I want to hear what you guys have to say. On top of that, though, if you want to see more of this kind of content, more PC port reviews, gaming news, Steam Deck videos, fanboy content, gaming news, and hot takes on the industry, subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 85,000 subs, and I just want to say thank you guys so very much. Now, if you want Discord access or most during live streams, become a YouTube member. It's as low as $1. Now, if you don't want to spend the buck, don't sweat it. Every Saturday night, 8:45 p.m. Eastern, live on this channel, we stream for about 5 to 6 hours where we have 800 to 900 people insult me with AITTS, and the community even gifts memberships sometimes. It's incredibly amazing. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. With all that being said, though, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you have a great one, and I'll see you gooners next time. Peace!